For the past 2 seasons, I have photographed 2 sugaring operations in Johnson and Heinsberg, Vermont. One uses state-of-the-art technology, and the other uses traditional methods of draft horses and metal buckets. I started the project at Butternut Mountain Farm, where David Marvin checks the last season's crop. Marvin is one of the largest processors of maple in the country. One of the highlights for me was to camp out on Butternut Mountain Farm one June night and photograph views looking west over the northern Champlain Valley. This picture emphasizes the importance of conserving and stewarding land in Vermont, whether for maple, logging, or farming. Although I focus mostly on landscapes, I also made some portraits, including this one of Fran Sladek, David Marvin, and Adam Tasker, who work year-round maintaining the 300-acre Butternut Mountain Farm sugar bush. One of the challenges of this project was to photograph the high-tech nature of modern sugaring equipment. I come from a background of photojournalism, so I'm used to seeing my pictures on pages and not as much hung on walls. I thought about this process like the difference between prose and poetry. I was trying to visually distill the essence of sugaring. Once the sap starts flowing, long nights are required to evaporate the sap into maple syrup. Here, David's son Ira works with Steve Wilbur in the Butternut Mountain Sugar House. Wilbur has been working for the Marvin family for 34 years. According to the Vermont Maple Sugars Makers Association, the history of maple is steeped in legend. A native chief returning to his village after a hunting trip threw his tomahawk into a sugar maple tree. The spring sun warmed the tree, and sap ran down into a birch bark container. Thinking the clear sap was water, the chief's wife poured it in with some meat she was cooking. As the water boiled away, a sticky, sweet glaze formed on the meat, adding wonderfully sweet maple flavor to the meal. This is also at Butternut Mountain Farm in June. I love to photograph at twilight, which is the next slide, when even mundane subjects take on a mysterious quality. Here, Steve Wilbur and Ira Marvin work late into the night as they make the liquid gold of the Green Mountains. The Vermont maple industry yields about $15 million in direct sales each year. I made this long exposure photograph at Butternut Mountain when videographer Jay Stearns was shooting video of me for an Eyes on Land video. Luckily, Jay had a flashlight I could borrow to light up the tubing disappearing into the sugar bush. The Russell Farm in Heinsberg is at the other end of the technological spectrum from Butternut Mountain Farm. The Russell and Donegan families sugar the old-fashioned way, with a team of draft horses, metal buckets, and firewood powering the evaporator in the old wooden sugar house. Once the sap starts flowing, it's all hands on deck at the Russell Farm. With draft horses pulling the sled, everyone heads out into the 60-acre sugar bush. Here, Ann Donegan on the left and her son Joe collect sap with friend Andrea Morganti, who is with us tonight. With a practiced hand, Harry Russell guides Belle and Roz between the maple trees to collect the sap from the buckets. According to the Vermont Sugar Maple Association, this is the science behind maple syrup. It takes 40 gallons of sap to make a gallon of maple syrup, which has a sugar content of 66.9%. The evaporation process sends clouds of sweet maple scented steam billowing from the sugar house cupolas. Stainless steel pans sit atop a firebox where oil or wood creates an intense fire. As the water in the sap evaporates, the sap thickens, and as the sugar caramelizes, it looks like hundreds of golden bubbles in the front pan. The sugar maker tests the syrup's progress by looking for it to apron off the edge of a metal scoop, meaning it's almost ready. When the temperature is 219 degrees, the syrup is ready to draw off. Ann Donegan and her brother, Harry Russell, make syrup at the Russell Farm in Heinsberg. Ann learned how to make syrup as a girl from her father, a dairy farmer, who would doze off in exhaustion after a hard day's work as the sap boiled away deep in the early spring evening. Here's a portrait of Ann Donegan on the right and her family, and Andrea, in front of the sugar house. Both of these operations are family-run and multi-generational with lots and lots of help from friends. I photographed these conserved properties in winter, spring, summer, and fall. I made this photo at the Russell Farm Sugar Bush in October to show the true seasonality of the maple syrup process and highlight the star of the show, the maple tree. About 1 in 4 trees in Vermont is a maple. The Russell Farm has a large network of trails open to the community surrounding it. I want to close with a poem by Robert Frost, Evening in a Sugar Orchard. From where I lingered in a lull in March outside the sugar house one night for choice, I called the fireman with a careful voice and bade him leave the pan and stoke the arch. O fireman, give the fire another stoke and send more sparks up chimney with the smoke. I thought a few might tangle as they did among bare maple boughs and in the rare hill atmosphere not cease to glow, and so be added to the moon up there. The moon, though slight, was moon enough to show on every tree a bucket with a lid, and on black ground a bearskin rug of snow. The sparks made no attempt to be the moon. They were content to figure in the trees as Leo, Orion, and the Pleiades, and that was what the boughs were full of soon. Thank you very much.